In From the Fields is a story that's taken from the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a man with an unusual passion for setting things right. When he heard that the city of Jerusalem was in ruins, a disgrace among the nations, he wasted no time in rallying the exiles. Together they labored, restoring the walls of the city, hanging the gates once again, building homes for the families, and cultivating fields to be productive. Once again, trade took place within the city and its glory was being restored. And then he re-established the temple right in the middle of it all, a place where the Levites could come and serve in the work that they were called to do. Right before Nehemiah leaves to go back to his country, he sets up one last thing, a storeroom right beside the temple. This is the place from which the Levites would be resourced. This is the place from which their lives would be sustained as they served the Lord. And so all of God's people now had a place where they could bring their contributions to ensure that the Levites were fully cared for as they did their work. I believe that God has Levites all over the world, people who are called and anointed and set apart to be in ministry. And I believe it's on God's heart that they be fully resourced for the work that they're given to do by the generosity and the joy of God's people as they bring their contributions and bring it all together. Interestingly, though, when Nehemiah returns to Jerusalem some years later, perhaps, the first thing he notices is that there are Levites out working in the fields. Why is this, he wonders, and when he investigates, he sees something that really makes him very upset. The people that had been given the charge of the storeroom over time had handed it over to a man who couldn't really have cared less about the Levites. In fact, he had used the storeroom as a place to store his domestic excess, his household goods, in effect. Well, Nehemiah wastes no time in setting this straight. He clears out that storeroom once again, and he sends people out to gather in once again the contributions of God's people to make sure that those Levites were, in effect, able to put down their trowels, put down their tools, and come back in from the fields. He longed for them to be wholeheartedly engaged and fully released to the work that God had given them to do. You know, I believe that the Holy Spirit is wanting to do a similar reset in our generation. There are people who have been passionately pouring themselves into the work of the Lord, but also working a full day's work often just to sustain the work of the ministry. And I believe that this is something He wants to set right, that He wants God's people to once again resource those who are called to be full-time in the work of the Lord. And so I want to say thank you to you for being partners with us. Here at Torn Curtain, we would love to pave the way for more and more Levites to come in from the fields. Thank you for your giving. Thank you for reestablishing, God's heart for this, to see all of us fully released to do the work that He's placed on His heart. It is such a joy to be part of this with you, and we look forward to what God does as He continues to do this around the world, and glory goes to Him in our generation.